Usually, the Earth, Sun, and Moon carve a delicate balance in the sky. During the day, the sun shines uninterrupted until the sun sets and the moon rises to faintly illuminate the night. However, there are some points where that delicate balance is interrupted, whether it be the sun suddenly going dark in the middle of the day or the moon turning a crimson red when it should be purely white. No, this isn't magic. It's a completely scientific phenomenon that relies on just where the Earth, the Sun, and the Moon are in space. They're called eclipses. Now, before we get into these strange happenings that throw everything out of balance, I would appreciate you would like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay tuned for future content. Okay, so how exactly do eclipses happen? Well, everything that's illuminated by the sun has a shadow, unless it's midday in Hawaii, in which case everything looks like a badly rendered video game. This includes the massive bodies that are the Earth and the Moon themselves. Whenever the Earth falls into the Moon's shadow, or vice versa, some very interesting things start to happen. You will have a region, or in some cases involving the Moon, the entire surface that's in daylight, no longer able to see the sun. What happens when the sun is completely blocked out is the foundation of these eclipses. As you may have guessed, there are two types of eclipses, solar and lunar eclipses, with each one corresponding to the order in which the Earth, Sun, and Moon are lined up. Let's start with lunar eclipses, as they're more common. In a lunar eclipse, the Earth is situated between the Moon and the Sun. Since the Earth is so big, it is possible for the entire Moon to fall under the darkest part of Earth's shadow, the umbra, or in other words, the region where the entire Sun is blocked out. This is known as a total lunar eclipse, and these are the eclipses where the Moon turns red. The reason why this happens is because sunlight is scattered around Earth through its atmosphere, and since the atmosphere blocks blue light but mostly lets red light pass through, the result is a red, or blood, moon. Not all lunar eclipses produce this outcome, however. You may have eclipses where only a part of the moon is inside the umbra, resulting in a crescent moon at the wrong time of the month. There is another type of lunar eclipse, known as a penumbral lunar eclipse, where part or all of the moon is under the lighter region of Earth's shadow, where only part of the sun is blocked. This variant, however, is usually unnoticeable to the unaided eye. Lunar eclipses can also only happen when the moon is full, as the entirety of the side of the moon we see has to be facing the sun. However, as the only requirement to see a lunar eclipse is to actually have the moon in the sky as it's happening, pretty much anywhere on Earth's nighttime side can see the eclipse happen, weather permitting. Additionally, these eclipses last a long time, with the longest lasting over 5 hours from start to finish. As a result, most people have an opportunity to see a blood moon every 2 to 3 years on average. Overall, while red moons are cool, their frequency and long length don't make them overly special. However, the other type of eclipse, a solar eclipse, is far more interesting. These eclipses happen when the moon passes between the Earth and the sun, as opposed to the other way around. Since the moon is smaller, even the huge penumbra isn't big enough to cover the entirety of Earth's sunlit surface, even in the best of circumstances. However, it gets even crazier. In one of the most incredible cosmic coincidences we know of, the sun is approximately 400 times bigger than the moon, but it's also 400 times further away from Earth. As a result, they appear to be almost the exact same size in the sky, with minor fluctuations depending on where the Earth and Moon are in their orbits. As a result, the moon's umbra can only cover a small sliver of Earth's surface at a time, usually a band about 50 to 100 miles wide that travels across entire continents as the moon moves in its orbit. However, that extremely thin space gets to experience a total solar eclipse, which is regarded by many to be one of the most spectacular cosmic events someone can witness. There are a number of features that are associated with totality, such as the sun's exposed corona and an effective 360-degree twilight due to the small size of the umbra, that have left thousands awestruck over the years. Unfortunately, totality doesn't last very long unless you're lucky enough to be on a plane headed the right direction, with a grounded observer seeing the moon fully blocked out for about 7.5 minutes under perfect circumstances, and usually much shorter. Additionally, the small size of the umbra and the number of paths the moon's shadow can take across Earth's surface mean that on average, a location will see the sun fully blocked out once every 360 years. Total eclipses are not the only solar eclipses that can happen. As mentioned before, there are partial eclipses that can happen if you're lucky enough to at least land in the moon's penumbra during the eclipse. Additionally, if the Earth is too close to the sun, or the moon is too far away from Earth, it can be impossible to block out the entire sun. The result is a ring of fire solar eclipse that is exactly what it sounds, the sun appearing as a ring around the new moon. These eclipses are really dangerous, since looking at the sun is already extremely harmful to one's eyes, and an eclipse only amplifies this effect. As a result, these variants are only really viewable with special safety glasses. There is one last thing to address. Why don't these eclipses happen every month? Well, it all comes down to the moon's orbit itself. The orbit is tilted about 5 degrees relative to the point of the solar system, which is really significant considering that the sun and moon only cover about 0.5 degrees in our sky. As a result, it takes perfect timing for the stars to align, and many of the eclipses that do happen never involve their full variance. As a result, eclipses generally happen once every 6 months on average, with total solar eclipses being the rarest of all of them. And that just covers it for this video on eclipses. As always, I'd appreciate you would like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay tuned for future content. Thanks and have a great rest of your day.